Good day. I am Alfred Reginald Radcliffe Brown, a British social anthropologist, known as one of the founders of modern social anthropology and the chief architect of structural functionalism. My work laid the foundations for understanding society as a system of interrelated parts, where every institution, custom, and norm plays a vital role in maintaining social order and cohesion. I dedicated my life to establishing social anthropology as a rigorous scientific discipline, focusing not on the speculative evolution of societies, but on the functions that social practices serve in sustaining the structure and stability of communities. Welcome to Socio-Exploration. In this session, I invite you to journey through my life and contributions to anthropology and sociology, especially how I helped shift the focus of social analysis away from historical speculation and toward the scientific study of living societies and their structures. I was born on January 17, 1881, in Birmingham, England, into a respectable middle-class family where education, intellectual curiosity, and discipline were deeply valued. My upbringing was influenced by Victorian ideals of self-improvement, rational thinking, and moral responsibility, principles that laid the groundwork for my future scientific approach to studying human societies. I grew up in a nurturing household where both my parents, particularly my father, instilled in us the value of intellectual discipline and integrity. Though they were not academics, my family fully supported my education and fostered a love for learning. My siblings and I were raised in an environment rich with books, discussion, and thoughtful debate. Later in life, I sought to recreate a similar atmosphere within my own family. In 1909, I married Winifred Marie Lyon, a woman of strength and quiet understanding. Together, we had a daughter. While not much is publicly known about her, my family remained a steady source of support throughout my often geographically demanding career. Despite long absences due to fieldwork and academic responsibilities, I remained deeply attached to my family, drawing strength from their presence and emotional grounding. In 1901, I entered Trinity College, Cambridge, to study moral sciences, a combination of philosophy and psychology. However, my academic direction shifted when I encountered the emerging discipline of anthropology. Influential lectures by W.H.R. Rivers and A.C. Haddon awakened my interest in empirical research and ethnographic fieldwork. Their emphasis on scientific observation over speculative theorizing resonated with me deeply and redirected my intellectual path. At a time when many of my peers were preoccupied with reconstructing early human history based on minimal evidence, I became convinced that anthropology's true purpose was to study contemporary living societies, observing how they function and evolve through structured social norms. One of the most significant influences on my thinking was the French sociologist Émile Durkheim. His focus on social facts, collective consciousness, and moral order shaped my theoretical lens. I admired his scientific rigor and sought to bring similar precision to the study of societies traditionally labeled as primitive. My first significant ethnographic fieldwork took place from 1906 to 1908 in the Andaman Islands. Living among the Andamanese people, I documented their kinship systems, rituals, and social organization. Unlike earlier scholars who viewed such practices as obsolete remnants of a distant past, I focused on how these customs actively contributed to societal stability and cohesion. In the following years, particularly throughout the 1910s and 1920s, I conducted extensive research in Western Australia, immersing myself in Aboriginal communities. There, I closely examined their kinship structures, totemic practices, and systems of social regulation. These studies confirmed my belief that all societies, whether labeled modern or indigenous, are governed by underlying principles of social organization. In 1916, I was appointed professor of anthropology at the University of Sydney, where I helped establish anthropology as a formal academic discipline in Australia. I also mentored a generation of students to adopt a structural and empirical approach to the study of human societies. Later, I took up a post at the University of Cape Town in South Africa, where I expanded my comparative research by studying African kinship systems and social structures. These experiences allowed me to identify both the universal principles and regional variations that underlie human social life. In the late 1920s, I moved to the University of Chicago, introducing my theories to a broader American audience. Finally, in 1937, I accepted a position at Oxford University, where I formally established social anthropology as a distinct and respected discipline within British academia. My teachings and writings during this period helped shape the foundation of structural functionalism, the school of thought most closely associated with my name. In my later years, I continued writing, reflecting on the nature of social systems, and mentoring young anthropologists. On June 24, 1955, I passed away in London after a life dedicated to the scientific study of society. Fulfilling my personal wishes, I was cremated, and my ashes were scattered over the windswept moors of Dartmoor in Devon. The peaceful, solitary beauty of that place reflected my deep appreciation for reflection and contemplation. I left behind no grave, no grand monument, but my intellectual legacy lives on in classrooms, academic texts, and in the ongoing exploration of social life by generations of anthropologists inspired by my work. Throughout my life, I was driven by a single question: how do human societies maintain order and stability despite differences, conflicts, and challenges? In answering this, I formulated what is known as structural functionalism, a theoretical approach that views society as a system of interrelated parts, each contributing to the whole. Allow me to explain some of my central ideas. 1. Society as a system of structures. I believed that society is not simply a collection of individuals, but rather a structured system of roles, institutions, and customs, all functioning together to sustain social life. Every part of society, whether it be family systems, economic exchanges, religious rituals, or political leadership, exists because it fulfills a specific role that contributes to the maintenance of the social order. Like the organs of a living body, these social structures work in harmony to sustain the survival of the whole society. 2. The concept of social function. One of my most important contributions was the clear definition of function. I define the function of a social institution as the contribution it makes to the maintenance of the structural continuity of the society. For example, marriage rules regulate kinship ties and inheritance. Religious rituals promote social cohesion and collective identity. Legal norms resolve conflicts and maintain order. Thus, customs and institutions should not be dismissed as mere traditions, but recognized for the critical roles they play in sustaining social life. 3. Moving beyond speculative history. I took a clear stand against the speculative evolutionism of the 19th century. Many anthropologists before me focused on how customs and institutions might have originated in the distant past. But I argued that our job as anthropologists was not to guess their historical beginnings, but to understand their current function and meaning in the society where they exist today. In my view, anthropology should be a scientific discipline, grounded in careful observation and logical analysis, not vague historical imagination. 4. The universality of social function. Although my fieldwork focused on small-scale societies such as the Andaman Islanders and Australian Aboriginal groups, I believed that all societies, whether simple or complex, could be analyzed using the same functional framework. In this sense, structural functionalism was meant to be a universal theory, applicable not just to tribal societies, but to industrial and modern societies as well. 5. Interdependence in social order. A core principle of my thought is interdependence. In every society, the parts are connected. Kinship rules influence economic exchanges. Religious beliefs shape political authority. Law and custom together regulate social behavior. If one part of the system changes, the other parts will eventually adjust, maintaining a balance and preserving the overall social order. 6. acknowledging social conflict and adaptation. Though I'm often seen as emphasizing stability, I never denied the existence of conflict or change. Societies are not static, but adapt when tensions arise. A social structure may change its form, but it will eventually re-establish equilibrium through new norms and institutions. For example, when new economic practices disrupt traditional kinship roles, society may develop new rules to manage these changes. Thus, while my theory emphasized stability, it also recognized the adaptive capacity of social systems. 7. Structural functionalism and scientific anthropology. Above all, I argued that anthropology should be scientific, aiming for general principles that explain how social systems operate. My approach emphasized fieldwork-based data collection, objective analysis of social institutions, comparative studies across cultures. I hope to build anthropology into a rigorous social science, on par with sociology and psychology, capable of explaining not only the customs of so-called primitive societies, but also the complexities of modern social life. While my theories provided clarity and structure, I knew they were not the final word. Later thinkers would critique structural functionalism for sometimes overlooking power struggles, individual agency, and historical change. Yet I am proud to have laid a strong foundation for the scientific study of human societies, one that continues to inspire scholars in anthropology and sociology today. Although my writings were fewer in number compared to some of my contemporaries, their depth and influence have endured in anthropology and sociology alike. Here are my principal works, along with the years they were published. 1. The Andaman Islanders, 1922. This was my first major ethnographic study, based on my fieldwork among the Andaman Islanders between 1906 and 1908. In this book, I analyzed their religious rituals, kinship relations, and social organization. I argued that their customs, though appearing simple or primitive to outsiders, had critical social functions that promoted cohesion and solidarity within their community. This work was one of the earliest examples of applying Durkheimian functionalism to the empirical study of a non-Western society. It helped shift anthropology from speculative history to systematic analysis of living social structures. 2. African Systems of Kinship and Marriage, 1950. Editor. Although I did not author all the essays in this volume, I edited and contributed to this collaborative work, which brought together research on kinship systems across African societies. This book demonstrated how kinship structures were not simply family ties, but complex social systems governing inheritance, authority, and responsibility. It provided comparative insights into how kinship serves as the backbone of social organization, regulating many aspects of economic and political life in tribal societies. 3. Structure and Function in Primitive Society, 1952. This work is perhaps my most significant theoretical contribution. It is a collection of my most important essays, written between 1910 and 1940, compiled and published towards the end of my life. In these essays, I systematically presented my theory of structural functionalism, emphasizing how every custom and institution contributes to the maintenance of the social structure. I explained that anthropology should not be concerned with the speculative origins of customs, but with their functions in present-day society. This book made my theoretical contributions accessible to generations of students and scholars. 4. The Andaman Islanders, 2nd edition, 1948, revised edition. A revised edition of my original 1922 work, this version included some refinements and additional commentary based on later anthropological debates. 5. Numerous journal articles, 1909-1955. Between 1909 and 1955, I published several influential articles in journals such as the Journal of the Royal Anthropological Institute, Africa, Man, and others. In these articles, I elaborated my concepts of social structure and social function, law and social control in tribal societies, comparative kinship systems, methodology and anthropology, Though scattered across various publications, these articles were later collected in Structure and Function in Primitive Society. Though I left no physical monument, my work permanently transformed the study of human societies. I demonstrated that every ritual, every kinship rule, and every social practice, however unusual it might appear, serves a vital function in maintaining social cohesion. My approach encouraged scholars to move beyond ethnocentric judgments and to seek the internal logic of every society. Anthropology today is richer, more scientific, and more respectful of cultural diversity because of these efforts. My legacy lives not in stone, but in the minds of those who continue to explore the intricate structures that hold human societies together. Do like, subscribe, and click the bell icon for further updates. Thank you, and have a great day.